Ag AM in Kansas is brought to you in part by SureCrop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
Brian McCornack, Department of Entomology at Kansas State University, and today I'd like to give you a little bit of an update on sugarcane aphid, which is a new pest for us in sorghum. This is a new pest for us this year. We didn't have it last year, but it has been a problem in the southern plains, especially in Texas and Oklahoma. It was first reported in Sumner County, which is just a few miles from the Oklahoma border, by Scott Armstrong at the USDA ARS in Stillwater. And again, that was in late August. And more recently, we found some populations as far north as Sedgwick County. Of the 10 fields that we sampled here last week, we found it in 9 of the 10 fields. So going from very, very few fields, again, late August, to almost all the fields that we had looked at with a few populations, much like what we see in the picture here. Again, this is a migratory pest, so coming in from weather events from Texas, Oklahoma, as populations start to build up. This is an aphid, has very fast reproductive rate, can develop within a few days, and is kicking out aphids for about 15-20 days of its life. And what we saw here in Kansas, or at least what we were interested in, was looking at whether or not some of these hard freezes, these hard frosts, were going to affect populations, some of these which were building up. And what we saw is when it hit down to 22 degrees, at least in the fields that we had looked at, populations had essentially crashed. And so if we look here, we can see some of the pre-freeze mortality of these dark discolored aphids, going from something that's more healthy up in the left-hand corner here, to these discolored aphids here along the rib. And then even a couple days after that, where nearly 100% of the population had died. So this was a concern for, I know, growers in Sedgwick County that had spotted this aphid and seen some of these colonies start to build up. And one of these trigger signs that at least we look for is these shiny leaves. And so as you're walking through a field, a really good diagnostic to see whether or not sugarcane aphid, or most other aphids that you might be familiar with, is this honeydew substance, so this shiny surface. And that's mainly because the aphids are feeding on the underside of the leaf. They're depositing these honeydew droplets, and makes that really shiny diagnostic for us to spot. So this was pretty easy for us to see in those 9 fields that we walked in. Usually within a couple minutes' time, we could find some plants that had really high populations that you're seeing here. And for most of the other plants, it was not a problem. But where it has been a problem, especially in Texas and Oklahoma and parts of Louisiana, is that there's so much honeydew that the augers clog. And so this becomes a really big problem at the time of harvest. So there is physiological loss where the aphids are feeding directly on the plant, causing that plant to lose some of its photosynthate, but at the same time, it becomes a real mechanical mess when you've got plants that are completely coated in sugar. That also causes a problem for some of the natural enemies, so the biological control that usually feed on these aphids, like ladybugs and lacewings. We actually have a colleague out in Hayes, Dr. J.P. Michaud, who's looking at some of the more native lady beetle and other natural enemy communities to see what kind of response essentially the army that we have already can do for this aphid, and hopefully in the future. As far as the general concern for us in Kansas, I don't want to get everybody all worked up, as this is a new and a well-established pest. There's a lot yet for us to know, most of which is, does it overwinter? Is this something we're going to see early on next year? That's something that my lab is interested in looking at, primarily from the standpoint of temperature, much like what we saw here with looking at a hard frost and the impacts on that species. At the same time, when are we going to get this next year? What type of weather event might bring this in? When should we start sampling for it? As far as any other controls, unfortunately, there's nothing registered for it in Kansas. The Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission is working with the Kansas Department of Ag, and we're also working in conjunction with them, but they're doing most of the legwork to try to get something registered for its use in case this were to become a problem for us. But unfortunately, until we can find something or find populations that are really causing some type of economic loss, our hands are somewhat tied. But we were fortunate enough this year to get some data on it to understand what its potential is here in Kansas. And actually, the experiment we put out here last week, you can see where we wrote on some of the leaves. This actually came from a Twitter post from a grower down in Sedgwick County. And I happen to be following Zach Simon, extension agent in Sedgwick County. I said, hey, I'd like to get a colony started because we were really interested in learning more about this species and what the impact might be in Kansas grain sorghum. And then I think it was on Wednesday, the very next day, we were setting up cages and looking at ways of capturing some of this data using grower fields, using production sorghum fields. So for me, that's kind of been a really interesting twist on the use of social media to kind of answer some of these very pertinent questions that are facing some of our growers. Bottom line is, it's an aphid. We know what aphids can do in sorghum, especially those that have experienced green bug. But at the same time, with research, we can be working together towards potential solutions. What those solutions might be for sugarcane aphid really has to do with understanding when is it going to be here, how much time do we have between that time and harvest, and what are some of the environmental conditions that are mostly going to affect its population growth. So again, this is a great example where social media can help connect people. And so again, with that grower taking the time to post a tweet that had a picture of an infested plant, got me to his farm a couple of days afterwards to put in some plots. And for me, what I really like to do is the on-farm research, so working with those that have that problem and finding practical solutions for helping them in the future. So I do encourage you to stay connected with your county agents, with researchers like myself, either through Facebook or Twitter, and again, stay connected in the research process.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.